I think it was about 30 years ago, I attended a men's retreat at a state park in Mississippi. I'd never done anything like that before. There had been men's groups and discussions, but this was something different. They were studying the works of David Deida. We had discussions on spirituality, masculinity. We did a group sweat lodge, and I even participated in a rebirthing exercise. Some of it was unfamiliar territory for me, but I learned a lot from that weekend. But I also experienced something there that affected me deeply, and I've carried it with me for years. Something I later came to call male nurturing. This is where men are actually listening to one another, encouraging one another, allowing vulnerability without immediately trying to fix it. Like I said, it was a meaningful experience. But during that weekend, I was talking to a friend who was at the same retreat, and he said something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Life is all about healing." Well, for some reason, something inside me actually resisted that idea. Not because I don't believe in healing, of course I do. Human beings get hurt. We experience loss and rejection, childhood conditioning. We go through broken relationships, addiction. Many of us have experienced trauma and grief. But I think that sometimes healing not only requires therapy or medical care or recovery programs, it requires a sense of compassionate support from ourselves. So I remember wondering, is life really supposed to be about healing forever? Now, over the years, I've met many people who are involved in spiritual communities. I've traveled quite a bit in the last 7 years. I've encountered workshops, retreats, Reiki, shamanism, energy healing, meditation, past life work, body work, certifications and programs that promise countless ideas of personal transformation. And I have to admit, some of those practices seem to be enormously helpful. And that's not really the issue I'm interested in. What interests me is what happens when healing itself becomes our identity. Whenever we begin with, okay, there's something in me that needs healing, but somewhere along the way, I see that that can become, I am a person who is always healing. Another workshop, another technique, another explanation, another layer to uncover, another wound, another childhood injury. Eventually, I began asking myself a very simple question. How do we know when we're actually healed? And what would healing look like? Now, recently, I encountered a phrase that said, loops of healing and fixing. And when I read it, I thought, that's it. Healing can become a loop. Because every time we go looking for another thing that needs fixing, we may unknowingly reinforce the assumption beneath the entire search. There is still something fundamentally wrong with me. Now, I have to say, this reminds me of something I've always appreciated about the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. They have a structure to them. It's like a physician's diagnosis. First, there is suffering, or what they say in Pali, dukkha. Dukkha is kind of a level of frustration. It's like a wheel that's not centered properly on its axis. And then secondly, there is a cause. It's usually considered something like attachment or craving or grasping or clinging. It comes from our difficulty in being able to accept life as it actually is. Then there is the possibility and the promise of release. And finally, there is a prescription. The Buddha offers a way of living and practicing that leads toward freedom. He called this his Noble Eightfold Path. Now, the Buddha didn't simply explain suffering. He offered a way to work with it. And that's the question that eventually became important to me. What can I actually practice when life activates me? And that question became central to what I now call non-reactive intelligence. Now, for me, healing increasingly means developing the ability to self-regulate and return to coherence. Now, coherence doesn't mean becoming permanently peaceful. It doesn't mean never getting angry. It doesn't mean never feeling afraid or hurt, jealous, or even disappointed. Coherence, to me, means that when those things arise, they don't automatically determine what I choose to do next. I can experience anger without turning it into cruelty. I can feel hurt without immediately blaming someone else for what is actually happening inside myself. I can experience fear without allowing fear to make every decision. I can recognize an impulse without automatically obeying it. And that leads to perhaps the most important thing I want to share with you in this episode. Your reaction is the curriculum. Because eventually, we have to leave the workshop. We have to close the book. We have to come home to ourselves. And there we are, sitting in front of someone we love and they disagree with us, or someone criticizes us, someone accuses you behind your back, our partner says something we don't like, someone disappoints us, something breaks, we lose money, we feel rejected, we're tired, our plans don't go through, things seem to fall apart. And that's when suddenly the nervous system begins to activate. My friends, that is the classroom of this human experience. That's where everything we've learned becomes real. So here's something very practical you can try the next time things like this happen in your life, before responding, ask yourself 3 questions. You can write these down. First one is, what am I feeling in my body? It's not the story, not the body. It's tightness in the chest. Is it heat in the face? Is it a knot in your stomach? Is your breathing shallow? Whatever it is you're feeling, notice it. And then ask the second question. What story am I telling myself about what just happened? He doesn't respect me. She doesn't care. They're taking advantage of me. They're lying to me. I'm being rejected. Maybe that story is true, but maybe it isn't. But recognizing that it is a story begins to create a little space between what happened and what you think it means. That's why, if you've ever studied A Course in Miracles, it begins with lessons that say, nothing I see in this room means anything. The thoughts I'm thinking don't mean anything. And now, ask yourself the third question. What response would be consistent with the person that I want to be? Don't ask, what do I feel like doing? Don't ask, how do I make them understand? But instead, who do I want to be in this moment? Those few seconds can change everything. You feel the activation, you question the story, and you choose the response. That's a very simple form of non-reactive intelligence. And guess what? You don't need a workshop to practice it. You don't need a certification. You don't have to go to Peru and become a shaman. You don't have to master how to do hypnosis or past life regression. You don't have to do any of these things. Life will give you plenty of opportunities. Years ago, when I was thinking more about 12-step programs, I used to joke that perhaps there ought to be a 13th step. Now, I don't mean that disrespectfully, because 12-step communities have helped countless people recover from addiction and help them rebuild their lives. But I was asking something more philosophical. Is there eventually a point when we stop organizing our identity around what was wrong with us? I don't want to spend the rest of my life thinking of myself as a recovering reactive person. I want to recognize reactivity and learn from it. I want to practice my life in another way and then live. So maybe the 13th step is simply graduation. It's not graduation from being human, but it is graduation from believing that our wounds are the most important thing about us. And even self-regulation isn't the final destination, because even a calm person isn't necessarily a good person. For me, coherence eventually has to become ethical. My thoughts, my emotions, intentions, and actions increasingly need to reflect the values I say I believe in. I've sometimes described that as bringing together three ancient qualities: power, love, and wisdom. Power gives us the capacity to act. Love shapes the way we relate. And wisdom helps us see clearly enough to choose well, or to choose again. Perhaps healing is what happens as those parts of ourselves become less fragmented. I didn't say perfect. Integrated. More fully human. More fully alive. Ironically, something happened here in Oxley today that made all of this unexpectedly simple for me. Now, we've been experiencing some brutally hot Arkansas weather. And today it was around 97, maybe 98 degrees. But a little storm appeared. And slowly, the rain began coming down. And before too long, the temperature dropped to about 83 degrees. So I stepped outside off of the porch, barefoot, and I just stood silently in the rain. And I felt it running through my hair and down my face. And my body began to feel the energetic aliveness of the rain. Afterward, Diane and I sat on the porch and we just listened to it. We enjoyed a smoothie, and then we had a piece of sourdough toast and butter. And I realized there was no workshop, no technique, no healing ceremony. But for those few minutes, there was nothing to fix. There was simply life, our life together. And so perhaps healing is necessary precisely so that eventually we can stop thinking about healing and just start living. The next time something or someone activates you, you might remember these three questions. What am I feeling? What story am I telling myself? And who do I want to be in this moment? Because relationship can be the practice, and difficulties can be the teacher. Ordinary life can be the retreat. And your reaction is the curriculum. So until next time, may peace be with you.
All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. As we make our way through all the joys and pains, can we find our younger, truest selves? All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Someone will be calling you to be there for a while, Can you hear their cry from deep within? All I ask of you is forever to remember me.